Hello and welcome back to Fourth Down Focus. It's been a while, but we're finally back. I am joined with Caden and Kian today. No Max
Right.
because he's being boring. But we'll sort of get straight into it as we normally do with our team's results. And I feel like this might be more of a sore subject for some than others. So I'll let you start, Caden.
Yeah, I mean, after all the shit I got all season for saying we're going to the playoffs, the fact it went right down to one result that went against us is impressive. I can't say I'm proud of the team because that run where we were 4-8 was just tragic. But the fact that it's the Chiefs that actually eliminated us from contention is really fitting because why wouldn't they? Bo Nix, you have blood on your hands. So do you, Carson Wentz. Aaron Rodgers got the job done on the last day, but it wasn't meant to be. And we go again next year when we win the Super Bowl.
Kian?
We were just as tragic as we have been for the last 18 weeks, to be fair. I'm genuinely so glad it's over. The only bright spark of the season has been Brock Bowers, and I'm glad we got him his rookie records, the tight end and the catches, but we have been so bad this year. I'm just so happy I can finally enjoy my Sundays again without that dickhead Aidan O'Connell ruining it.
Yes, we're sort of a similar story to you, really. Our only bright spot was Malik Neighbour, so I suppose rookie receivers sort of saved any face of our season. I was quite worried at one point we were coming back into that Eagles game, and I was quite scared we were going to make it even worse for ourselves. But we got packed in by Tanner McKee. Is that his name? I don't know.
I don't even know his name.
Whoever that is. Yeah, he just done us in. Drew Lock went from throwing 5 touchdowns and then to back to normal. So cheers for that, Drew. Just having one game where you decided to become Tom Brady for no reason and cost us the first pick in the draft. But yeah, I mean, we needed to lose, and we did lose because if we'd won that game, I don't even know where we would have fallen to in the draft order, but it wouldn't have been pretty. So third pick, I can live with it, but unfortunately, because of Deshaun Watson being Deshaun Watson and Will Levis being Will Levis, it now means we're probably not going to get a quarterback for another year. So that's going to be interesting to see what we do. We'll move on to some. We spoke about your team, Caden, but the Bengals game obviously did beat the Steelers in what was a good game. I highlighted sort of Joe Burrow, just 80% pass accuracy, decent amount of yards and a touchdown, completely outshone Russell Wilson all day, but wasn't enough, was it?
Well, I mean, technically it was because we did what we could do. It wasn't a great game, I don't think. It was a bit of a sloppy one, but I didn't expect that going into it. But yeah, it's just sad, really. But at least we beat the Steelers in the regular season. It's always nice.
I mean, Kian, you say probably fair the Bengals did make the playoffs, or do you think they're probably better than some teams you have and the Chiefs maybe got a bit scared seeing them all too close to that 7th
Firstly, I
seed?
think they're better than the Broncos. The Broncos have not got a receiver anywhere close to Jamar Chase. I mean, he's the Triple Crown. You know, having that on your team and not making the playoffs is ridiculous. And Joe Burrow is levels above that Broncos, well, Bo Nix. But obviously, it's just the defense that's let them down. In fact, it's a loss against the Patriots on the first day that's let them down, which when you really look back is just shocking, really. The actual game itself, like Caden said, not the best game. I think the Steelers almost didn't have their heart in it because the Ravens had already won, so they couldn't move up or down a seed. So basically a nothing game for them. Nice for the Bengals to get a win and keep it going for another day, but it's just want to be this year. But I think next year they might be looking a little bit stronger now they've sacked their defensive coordinator.
Yeah, as I said, it just wasn't meant to be, and I think that Patriots game sort of ruined both of their seasons in a way because the win ended up costing the Patriots the first pick, and the losses cost the Bengals the playoffs. So it's interesting to look back and see how that one game may have tweaked, sort of history gone the other way. But I think, yeah, just too little, too late for the Bengals. You had your run, but I think you sort of realised, Caden, when it got to the point where you were, it was a bit too late. Even if you did win out, which you basically did more or less, it still wasn't going to be enough just because of the situation you put yourselves in. I think, as you said, it's a bit criminal how Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow aren't in the playoffs, but it's just the way things go with divisions and all what have you. They're not in his easy division, and it's proven costly to their season just having that bad start, which we knew would be, we knew it was bad at the time, but I don't think any of us really thought until that 4-8 where we sort of realised, okay, this might be the most detrimental part of it. But we'll move on. The Bryce Young show apparently in Atlanta, and also albeit it didn't really matter in the end. The Falcons did now not make the playoffs because the Bucs won that division. Again, the Bucs did win their games, where it didn't really make all too much difference. But Bryce Young, a bit of a second half season resurgence, Keane, after getting benched earlier in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I said when they benched him that they should never play him again. And I'm happy to eat my words there and say, do you know what? I think the best thing they could do was bench him, let Dalton play a few games, let him sit and learn. Because, Dalton's a veteran in this league. He's been around for a long time. He's sat and he learned and he's producing now as well. This is much more like the Bryce Young that they drafted. And a shout out to Penix as well. He also had a good game. It's just unlucky for him that he's not played much this season. I think he will probably be the starter as well going into next year. But yeah, that for me, the Bryce Young show, especially without Chuba Hubbard as well. I mean, everything fell on Bryce Young and he delivered. So 44 points, you can't complain.
Caden?
Yeah, I think Bryce Young, at the start of the year, I did feel really bad for him when he got benched. Well, like I said back then, there's a reason you get drafted so high. You've obviously got the talent. I think it's good that he's actually come out of it better off and he's actually playing well, because now the Panthers know they've got a good quarterback in him, so they can draft and maybe go in free agency around that and maybe build a really strong offense and maybe not too far off from having the Panthers not being a laughing stock in the NFL again.
I mean, yeah, you can't really argue with a 5-touchdown game, can you? I mean, 2 on the ground as well. It's really impressive. And I think, if they'd known it would have just been a bench that took him to start performing, they would have probably benched him after the first 5 weeks of the rookie season, because he looks like a completely different player. Looks like Bama Bryce, what we all expected when he came into the NFL, and he's finally shown what he is. Kian, you said as well about Michael Penix. He's been great since he came in for Kirk. And I think, unfortunately for Kirk, don't know if that's the end of his career, but it's certainly the end of his Falcons career, I think, because Penix has been brilliant since he came into that spot. And you said about Chuba Hubbard, but if Bijan in this game as well, 170 yards and 2 touchdowns, you still don't win. It must be quite frustrating. And I think he did get interviewed after the game, and it was sort of just like a frustration on missing the postseason. But when you're in that division with the Bucs, albeit it's probably the worst division in football, because you have the team like the Bucs in there, they're still going to have competition to make the playoffs. So I think there was a point, I think, at some point during when the 2 games were going on, where the Falcons were in and the Bucs were out because the Bucs were down in their game and the Falcons were up. But Bryce Young came back, and it was a great win for the Panthers in the end. Moving on, again, we said about the Bryce Young show, but this was definitely the Joe Milton show as the Patriots. Probably the stupidest win in history, but did beat the Buffalo Bills on the final day. And I've just put in there Joe Milton throwing the second hardest throw in NFL history. And it was quite impressive because he was on the run as well, I believe, when he did it. It was sort of a mobile one, but, great game from him. And I think, Caden, that's probably going to get a few GMs needing a quarterback around the league thinking a bit, albeit only just one game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that deep, to be honest. I just think the game was hilarious. I think it was just especially like given the context of what happened after. I think Joe has definitely done himself a favour in terms of making his career in the NFL a bit better. But yeah, I just can't look past the actual result of the game. I don't care about the individual performances as much as I do of the aftermath of this game.
Kian?
Firstly, I've got so much respect for Josh Allen's shithouse in his starting streak, where he played the first snap, didn't even throw the ball, and then just walked off. That was impressive. On the hardest throw, I don't think I'd want my quarterback to be throwing 61-mile-an-hour footballs. That's like putting your hand in front of a 61-mile-an-hour car. It'd fucking break them. So I would be telling him, let's slow it down a little bit, please, Joe. But yeah, he actually did have a good game. That pass that he threw on the run, where it eventually got flagged back, it's probably going to go in his highlight reel, and it's a pass that didn't even count, because it was unbelievable play. He's fucking dancing around the backfield like me on Madden. But no, it was a horrendous win for the Patriots, which, in a lot of sports, there's no such thing as a horrendous win, but there certainly is in this league.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly got me as a Giants fan sort of contemplating that whole Joe Milton situation. Again, I'm not looking into it too much because in the day it's one game against the Bills backup, so you can't really look into it too deep. But at the same time, we knew Joe Milton had. I mean, he's proven it with that hard throw, but we knew he had the arm. we knew that as a Tennessee fan, I watched him in college, and he's a great quarterback, and I think the Patriots took him for a reason. As I said, he needed a sort of game where he could step in and just show what he can do, and he finally got it. I think, unfortunately for the Patriots, I think they probably brought him in trying to lose. Benching Drake May trying to lose the game, and they still won and cost themselves the first pick in the draft. Which, is it going to matter in the end? I don't know, because the only team that could potentially mess up their plans is probably us, because I know that they probably want Travis Hunter. So I think worst case we could probably fleece them for a couple of picks, maybe, and maybe even throw Joe Milton in a trade to try and move up to our pick. But yeah, probably the worst win, as you said. You don't get many sports with bad wins, but this was definitely probably the worst win of the entire season for any team, let alone just the Patriots. Just for Caden, this one, moving on. The Broncos absolutely battered the Chiefs' backups. Bo Nix 90% pass completion, 4 passing touchdowns as the Broncos clinched their spot in the playoffs. I mean, we'll start with you, Caden. I mean, you probably were just crying your eyes out watching the rest of this as Carson Wentz, I think it was 91 yards he threw for in that game.
He might as well have not been on the field, if I'm being honest. I was so hopeful going into it, and I was watching Red Zone. Within the first minute, Aaron Rodgers had been picked off, and the Broncos had scored a touchdown. And I think, maybe halfway in the second quarter, I just turned it off and gave up. It was sad to watch, and it's definitely just the Chiefs disrespecting us because they didn't want to play us in the AFC games.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the injury report, and it was just like, I think I tweeted out, and it was just that picture of who can play, and everyone just thumbs down because it was literally the entire any quality starter was just not playing in that game. But I mean, for me, I mean, much about Bo Nix, and it was a great game for him, 4 touchdowns at the end of the day. Again, same with Joe Milton. You can't deep it too much because it was against backups on a team, but more impressively, Cortland Sutton, I think within basically 2 catches, more or less, had was it $2 million bonus for getting that over 18 receiving yards? Yeah, I mean, yeah, some massive bonus he got for doing that. So, yeah, fair play to him for getting his money, I guess. But as I said, the Broncos in the playoffs probably deserved it. I mean, they're a bit of a weird season, but they were sort of just sat in that seed for a while, and they've just got over the line with a win they needed. I think as a not Broncos fan, sorry, as a Bengals fan, if you saw this 6-7 weeks ago and saw they had the Chiefs on the final day and you were going to need that to be a Chiefs win, you would have been absolutely over the moon. But when it got to the injury report, I think you quickly realised it was not a good thing at all. But yeah, Kian?
I don't think they deserve it at all. I'm going to put that out there right now. Sorry, I had a little bit of a buffer there. I don't think they're a very good team at all. I don't really think that we can bang on about Bo Nix's 4 touchdowns. He's throwing it against people that should be working in McDonald's. This is not a superior team. We'll see on Saturday. I'm pretty sure it's Saturday they play the Bills. We'll see. Josh Allen is going to have a day with them because I'm sorry, they are not a quality team.
Fair enough. We'll move on to what is definitely what is definitely a quality team. The Detroit Lions secured the number 1 seed in the NFC, and I don't know when the last time they did it was, and I think it would probably be a very long time ago.
I don't think they ever have.
Yeah, I think it is going to say. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the first time that's ever happened. But they beat the Vikings comfortably in the end, and as I've put there, Jahmyr Gibbs 3 touchdowns was the star of the show. Kian, is this your pick maybe for that team that sits in that Super Bowl from the NFC side of things?
Not just sits in it. This is the pick for my team that wins the Super Bowl. I don't see how they get taken down. What's happened there? Originally is the word I was going to get out there. Originally, I thought Aiden Hutchinson going down was going to be the one that would derail their season. That didn't do it. Then I thought maybe Montgomery might do it. Jahmyr Gibbs has stepped up even more. There's not a weak spot on this team, and I think there is a weak spot on all the other teams. They're just an unbelievable team, and as you can see, battered their closest competitors in the NFC, and I think they're going to go all the way and win the whole thing.
Caden?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you, Kian, but I just can't help but think that they don't have the bottle. I feel like we're going to do all this. They're going to have the number one seed in the NFC, and they're just going to be they're everyone's favourite. Everyone wants them to beat the Chiefs, and it's going to be the Chiefs and them in the Super Bowl if the Lions even get there. But I just don't think they can get over the final hurdle. Unfortunately, as good as the team is, I just don't think they've got the balls to do it.
I think with Montgomery now back, I believe he's playing
Oh, is it?
this weekend. Again, it adds that dual threat to that running back room, which is an absolute joke. But this win was sort of that. I think it was this statement from the Lions, if anything, that they're not just here to make up the numbers, and the injuries haven't really affected them as much as people think they have. Because at the end of the day, the Vikings are one of the best teams in the NFL this season. You can't really argue with it. The third best record or whatever it is in the NFL. And they come into this game full of confidence. They can maybe nick that number one seed, and the Lions just come in and destroy them. I think I definitely agree as far as I think this is the team that goes to the Super Bowl. I think if anyone in the NFC's got the bottle together, it probably is the Lions, because teams like the Eagles we've seen in so many years just don't have it, apart from that one year where they did get there. But other years, last year was a first round exit for the Eagles. Would I be surprised if it happens again? Not really. It's just a weird team. But the Lions, I think this is finally their chance to sort of cement their thing on it. And my thing is, it's not that I don't think they've got the bottle. It's because the Chiefs exist why I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. Because we all know there's some dodgy black magic stuff that'll go on in New Orleans this year when they inevitably win the Super Bowl yet again. But hopefully the Lions can cancel that one out. But that is all the games I thought we should look at for this week. Now moving on to the news. One for Kian, he'll be happy. It was a firing squad week of head coaches. Jared Mayo fired for winning a game, which is probably the first time we've seen that in a very long time. He won the game, cost him the first pick, and was fired about 2 hours later. AP fired from the Raiders after a pretty dismal season, and Doug Peterson finally fired from the Jags. I feel like everyone saw it going for a while, but it was coming. I mean, Kian, we'll let you start. I'm assuming you're very happy with the news that AP has been fired.
I was really happy until I said earlier that we've also fired Tom Telesco, who give us one of the best draft classes we've seen in years from one of our teams, because our draft classes are terrible, and we've got rid of him, which I just don't understand. But yeah, AP gone. It had to happen. He's not really a great coach. I'll put it this way: he's a great motivator. People will run through walls for him, but he's just not got the tactical mind to be a head coach in the NFL. I wouldn't mind if we kept him on doing what he was doing before he was the head coach, but I'm sorry, that's not his position, and I think anyone is better than him, especially Ben Johnson. So please, somebody do the right thing. Tom Brady, do the right thing. Ben Johnson's your guy.
Caden?
Yeah, I think none of these are really a shock to anyone. But the Mayo one is just hilarious because he had one job and his job was to be bad at his job. And he ended up winning the game and got fired. It's hilarious. But I feel like all three of these franchises need a bit of a fresh start because they are sort of at the bottom of the food chain in the NFL. And I think there'll be a few more firings, to be honest, I think in the coming weeks. We fired our defensive coordinator, which we should have done in the middle of the season. I wouldn't be surprised if Zach Taylor's gone as well. So I think in the next few weeks, for teams that maybe didn't meet expectation, might have to have a few hard conversations.
Yeah, I mean, on the opposite side of things, I didn't put this in there, but we've actually decided to keep Brian Daboll and Joe Scowen, which I think for maybe quite a few people is an interesting decision, to say the least. I kind of understand it in a way, because I do feel bad for the pair of them in a way that they haven't had their guy at quarterback, and it looks like they're not going to get him this year either. But I think, having to deal with Daniel Jones, again, you could argue they shouldn't have given him the contract they did. But at the time, coming off what he'd just done, I feel like a lot of our fans would have been more confused, if we didn't tie him down. So it's all in hindsight easy to say, but I think it's sort of their last chance, really, to get this team turned around. If it doesn't happen this year, I've got a feeling it might be the end. But as far as these three go, as you said, not really surprised in AP. I've always seen him more as a defensive coordinator. Probably will end up being our defensive coordinator if ours ends up getting fired. Doug Peterson, yeah, I wouldn't mind. Doug Peterson, it's been coming for a while. I think he's a great head coach, I think, but just not for that team. I think he needs a better quality of players to be able to succeed in the way that he did.
So he's not that good of a head coach then.
Yeah, that's true. Jared Mayo, yeah, it's just funny that one. Like, he did. They've been asking for him to win as long as possible. He finally wins a game, and they fire him for it. So it's quite amusing, really, seeing that one. But again, with the repercussions of what that win does for them, we can understand the decision because it has just thrown their whole draft into uncertainty when they probably were just preparing the slip ready to say Travis Hunter on the first pick. So I think it'll be an interesting one to see where that one goes from now. As far as this goes, trade time for Tyreek Hill, it looks like. I put the picture in there. Jalen Waddle asking Tyreek Hill, is he done? During a game, it's not a good look, really, is it? My point from this was complaining about the team not winning, but only putting up 6 touchdowns all season and less than 1,000 yards. Potentially might be the reason why they haven't made the playoffs, Ian.
Firstly, can I just say a 30-odd-year-old man wanting to be called Cheetah is an absolute joke. Like, I'm sorry. We get you fast, but grow up, you fucking sausage. And if we look at his stats this year, of course I picked him in the first round of my fantasy draft. He's been absolutely diabolical. I mean, look, they're not the worst stats in the world, but they're not good stats for Tyreek Hill. And I think he'll go. Well, he's definitely going, and I think it could potentially be the most insufferable trade of all time. And he goes on a reunion back to the Chiefs, and then we all have to watch Patrick Mahomes calling him Cheetah, and it's just he does my head in. The sooner he's out the league, the better. The way he's gone about it is so disrespectful. They've been there through a lot of hard situations for Tyreek Hill. Like his house burning down. And they stuck through him with that, and then he's done this to them. So what a prick.
So yeah, I kind of see the point, but like as well, if it was like Jamar Chase being fuming that his team hasn't made the playoffs, I'd sort of understand it because he's done everything he can, but Tyreek's just not had a good year. And when you're wide receiver number 1 and labeled probably one of the best in the league before the season, you're probably the key that your team needs to make the playoffs. I'm not being funny. They missed the playoffs because their quarterback was injured. Like that can't really be helped. I mean, Tua could not do what he does, but at the same time, people get injured as part of the game, and the fact he just couldn't be bothered really to adapt to whoever was throwing the ball, and just sort of seemingly by the looks of things just gave up when they started playing badly and just knew they weren't going to make the playoffs. I think it's just a weird look for me. I don't really understand his outrage, like saying, I want to win. Well, if you want to win, put up more than 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns.
You gimp.
I think there's plenty of receivers in this league who've done way better than that and been on worse teams. Neighbours, for example, been on a way worse team than the Dolphins, and you don't see him kicking the door down to leave just because they had a bad year. At the end of the day, the Dolphins will probably be in the playoffs next year if he stays. But I wouldn't want him. I think any GM with a brain shouldn't take him.
No,
it's just not a good person to have around. It's sort of like a Stephon Diggs situation. Just a great receiver, but it's not a character you want to really have to deal with.
Who would you rather go for a pint with? Stephon Diggs or Tyreek Hill?
Stephon Diggs, probably.
Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, because what do you want to drink, Cheetah? Do you know what I mean? I'll take Stephon Diggs for a pint.
Caden, anything to add to any of that, or just sort of the same?
I feel like Tyreek Hill needs a bit of a reality check. For someone who could quite easily never have had an NFL career, he is playing with fire at the moment because he knows that teams aren't going to want him because of his attitude. And it's him that's making it worse by pulling stunts like this. And I think if he wants a future at the top level, he needs to just sort of buck his ideas up. Like you said, I could see him going back to the Chiefs just because it's for Chiefs and they've got that pull to get anyone they want. But I feel like going to any other playoff team could either be the best thing he can do or the worst thing. Because if he's got a good, consistent quarterback thrown into him, he is arguably the best receiver in the league. But when he's playing like this and then throwing tantrums because he's not making the playoffs, then It just shows more about him than it does the team. And I think he just needs to grow up a little bit. Although he's quite little, but he needs to grow up.
Yeah, kids, I do rate your point about going for a pint. I cannot actually sit there with someone who calls himself cheater at his big old age.
He's deep in it now. He's deep in it.
He's
Yeah,
got
which-
11 kids, mate. I can't believe he calls himself cheater.
Oh, he's got more than that.
Yeah, I just think it's just a weird situation. Yeah, as I said, if he'd put up like 1,800 yards, 20 touchdowns, and they still not made the playoffs, I might understand his point. But he's had probably the worst year in his entire career, and he's complaining about why they haven't won any games. And I feel like you just need to look in the mirror and realize it's probably partly his fault.
Can I just make a point about this Dolphins game? So obviously we had Andy Davis on the pod. The poor guy has flew all the way there, and fucking cheater has quit the game, and he's had to watch Aaron Rodgers play like vintage Aaron Rodgers, and he's still not seen his team win. I actually feel so bad for him.
At least he got to watch Aaron Rodgers' potential last NFL game. That's
Yeah, I
always
suppose
something
so.
to take from it.
I mean, yeah, we put that one in. You're either Aaron Rodgers potentially retiring. I don't think he will. I think there's too many teams that need a quarterback and aren't going to get one in the draft.
I can see him in Cleveland, if I'm being honest.
I could see him here.
I don't think.
not-
I don't think
Nottingham.
Cleveland.
Vegas.
I don't think Cleveland purely because they're going to draft one, so I don't see what they need him for.
And they've got Diddy on the roster.
Exactly. Until he's gone, they can't afford a big contract. So.
He's not going anywhere. He's just going to sit in the back rooms. I don't want to know what he's doing there, but he's just going to be there.
I'd sit in the back room for how much money he's getting paid to do nothing. Just rinse them for every last penny they've got. Our final bit of news for the week really was this one. Probably, I think it's the only big injury news I've sort of seen for this wildcard that we didn't already expect. But Zay Flowers is out for the Ravens game against who are they playing? I kind of complete mind blank. Steelers. Oh, we've lost Kian.
Oh dear.
We'll
I
just
think it is with Steelers though.
Yeah, I think it is the Steelers. I'll start because Kian's decided to disappear. Yeah, I don't know how detrimental it is. I mean, Zay Flowers is a great receiver, but at the end of the day, it's not someone they can't live without. You know, they can lean on Derrick Henry as they have done for most of the season. They've still got Mark Andrews, Bateman, all them to throw to, so I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world, but as far as their number one guy, this is their number one guy in that receiver room, I think. And the last thing you want is to be without him for a playoff game. Kian, as you've reappeared, I'll let you go next.
The Wi-Fi did a Tyreek Hill on me. Anyway, so Zay Flowers being missing, to be fair, is a big loss. Although I see what you mean about they can lean on other players. They've got enough talent on that roster to cover up the loss. But, you know, in clutch moments where you need a deep threat, he is the deep threat. And, you know, when you lose that, you lose quite a pivotal part of your game, especially if you're losing. So, you know, if they're up and they're controlling the game, it's not a miss. But if they need points and they need points fast, it's a huge miss.
Kian?
Yeah, I feel like they've shown that they can win a game without passing the ball at all when you've got Derrick Henry and Lamar's so good on his legs. But like you said, if they need something in like a Hail Mary situation or very late in the game they need to get first down for a field goal, they are going to miss Zay Flowers because he is far and away their best receiver. But Lamar Jackson is a great quarterback. I'm sure he won't struggle to complete passes without Zay Flowers, but obviously it's going to be a big miss. It's just losing your number one receiver is never good, is it? You can't really take much from that. But I think they will be fine. I think they still breeze past the Steelers.
Well, that is all we have for our review of Week 18. So this is, unfortunately, our final regular season review of the entire season. No more games to review as far as the awful teams go. But as far as the best teams go, we've got the playoffs, obviously, starting this weekend. So after this video, you will see our preview video for Week 1 of the playoffs. But as far as for this video, thanks to Caden and Kian for joining me. And we will see you all next week for our review of Week 1 of the playoffs.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.